The following show contains adult content. It's not our intent to offend anyone, but we want to inform you that if you are a child under the age of 18 or get offended easily, this next show may not be for you. The content, opinions, and subject matter of these shows are solely the choice of your show hosts and their guests, and not those of the Entertainment Network or any affiliated stations. Any comments or inquiries should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening.
Hey everyone, and welcome to 50 Shades of Bullshit. I'm your host, Christine Lalonde, and this is the podcast where we uncover the truth about online dating. Now let's begin. Hey everybody, I'm Christine.
And I'm Janice.
And this is 50 Shades of Bullshit. Hello.
Yes. Hey everyone.
Happy to have you back, Janice. Thanks for co-hosting today.
My pleasure as always.
Happy. So, how's, I know you went on a vacation.
Yeah, my first vacation in over a year. Chris
Woo!
and I, it was also, it was a bunch of firsts. So it was Chris and my first official vacation together. Christine was actually privy to the first time we were out of state together, but that's a conversation for another time. So it was our first out of state vacation together, and it was our first vacation with a couple who we're really close with. And everyone is quite surprised by this, but we went to Mount Rushmore and we had an absolute blast. That was just last weekend, and we're all still like kind of riding the high from it. It was great.
I love Mount Rushmore. It's so beautiful out there. Did you see, oh my God, the horse?
Crazy Horse.
Crazy Horse?
Yes. So this was one of the very unexpected parts of the trip. Anyone listening, if you want to go to Mount Rushmore, it is actually, a lot of people say they're let down. We were not at all. The surrounding towns around it are just absolutely beautiful.
Oh, they're amazing.
We had the best time. It's absolutely gorgeous. And yes, we ended up at Crazy Horse. We all wanted to see it. We all thought that Crazy Horse was a more recently developed monument. So we rock up. They charge us $35 for the car to enter. And we are all like, oh my God, should we do this? It turns out we were getting ourselves into, a multi-acre museum, and come to find out that Crazy Horse has actually been under construction since Mount Rushmore was dedicated. Mm-hmm. So I had no idea. It was really, really cool. It was super, super special. We had a great time, learned a lot of things, got educated. There was a lot of unexpected things that happened. And that's what's really great when you travel with easygoing people who don't have agendas and just going with the flow. It was wonderful. Very happy about it.
Well, I went out there for my honeymoon with my older two daughters' dad, Roger. It was
to Mount Rushmore.
Well, we went to South Dakota.
Okay.
And we stayed at what was that town? It's
Grand Rapids?
No, it's the town where all of the bikers go to.
Okay.
It's the big town. I got to look it up.
All right.
It's the town where everybody goes for the
Sturgis.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So Sturgis has that little town. And it's amazing. It's such a beautiful place. And they were just starting. Oh my God. Let's see. Alexa was, this is in 1994 that I went, and the Crazy Horse was just getting really kind of started.
Well, but it had already been by that point 35 years in the making, believe it or not.
Yeah.
They started doing it in 1947.
Mm-hmm. It was barely anything when we were there.
That's amazing. Yeah, I had no idea the history of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, the man who started the whole thing, he actually said when he died, he's like, it's not going to be finished when I die. and I don't think it's going to be finished when y'all die, but just keep it going.
Going.
Yeah, and it's beautiful, and yeah, no end in sight, but that's like part of the excitement about it,
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
becoming the history, and we'll see what happens. It was a lovely experience.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah,
Well, I'm glad you had a great trip.
me too.
I'm I'm actually leaving for Nashville this coming week.
I'm so mad I can't go.
I know I got a new part-time job. I'm going to
Yay!
be the event coordinator for a real estate company that is really up and coming. In 3 years, they have built so fast that they're in 40 states throughout the United States, and they will be in all 50 states by the end of this year and in Canada. So I'm going to be doing their trade shows all over the world, and I'm going to be doing their events all over the country. So
Yes. This is meant for you. I'm happy.
I'm very, very excited
Yep.
about it. I'm still doing my cannabis stuff, and I'm still doing my filming.
Oh my God, tell us about the pies. I was trying to explain this to my friends over the weekend. A cannabis pie?
Yeah, so it's mini pies, mini cakes, ice cream, cinnamon rolls, and brownies. And there's some food items I'm doing. I'm doing grilled cheeses and pizzas, things like that are all infused. And it's really magical.
And you taste it, it gets you high? These all get you high?
Yeah, this is the thing. Typically, if you're going to eat a gummy or you're going to eat something that has cannabis in it, some kind of, like, say, normal brownie like that they make, it's very dry. It's not very good quality. And the weed that they put in it is very, very low quality. It's just a bunch of random leftover stuff that they throw in. And it can actually not kind of go well with a lot of different people's, you know, when you eat a gummy, it doesn't always work for somebody, or it does. It just kind of makes you feel like you have a hangover, and it's because of the poor quality. Now, I use the highest quality you can get.
Oh, okay.
I extract it myself. I have a machine that extracts it, and I infuse it myself with organic products. And it is the purest that you can get. And I've been putting it into my food, my baked items, which are award winning, and people are going crazy. I'm getting texts saying, I haven't slept more than 2 hours in 10 years a night. I fall asleep, I wake up, I fall asleep, I wake up. This woman texted me and said that she slept through 8 hours the first time she ate my edibles.
Yeah.
And then I have another woman who's a client who broke her back, and she's been in a lot of pain, and she's been eating my edibles, and she said she's pain free, she's sleeping.
Christine.
And so it's going really, really well.
I have an idea for a product.
Okay.
I'm thinking infused potato skins.
Okay. Okay, we got that.
Because that is satisfying. It's a common munchy food. And
There
yeah,
you go.
let's do some potato skin.
We'll do some samples. We'll work on them. So all of that's going really well. And I just got a promotional video booking. I'm going to be flying to Vegas in 3 weeks to do a promotional video for an HOA product for HOAs, a security product for HOAs. So
okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious to learn more about that. These are not organizations that have really the best reputation right now.
Well, HOAs are all across the world. They are I think they have 4 million people in HOAs throughout the US alone. And they are developing a software for the security for HOAs.
That I can get behind.
And I'm doing the promotional video for it.
Oh, great. That's super.
I'm excited. But that's, all the good stuff. I'm excited about this episode. I'm
Yes.
happy to have Radha join us. I'm going to introduce Radha here so she can come on and start talking to us about her topic today. We're actually talking about South Asian love in a modern world. Uh, can tradition and modern romance coexist? Well, today we have matchmaker Radha Patel, founder of Single to Shaadi, joins us to explore the tension between South Asian cultural values and today's dating world. From arranged marriages to swiping right, we dive into what love looks like for South Asian singles, balancing family expectations with personal desires. Radha dishes real talk, cultural insight, and spicy truths about finding love on your own terms. Let's bring in Radha.
All right, let's do this.
Hey,
Hello, Christine. Hi, Janice. So happy to
Hey,
be
girl.
here.
we're
Yeah.
happy to have you today. Welcome to the show. I can't believe I haven't had you on sooner. Here we are, though.
Thank you so much.
The
I know.
power
I'm
of
excited.
networking, right?
Love it.
Yes, love it. So, welcome, Radha. You are based out of where?
I'm based out of Dallas, Texas, but I kind of grew up all over the place. I'm originally from the East Coast. I've lived in over a decade in Chicago, and I've been in Dallas since 2020. So that's home now.
What got you? All right, so what is your, I guess, like connection to? How did you come to specify or like specifically work with South Asians, considering where you're from?
Yeah, so I am South Asian. I'm Indian. My parents came over in the 70s, during that wave of immigration. And so I grew up in a very like a rural part of Maryland. My parents had businesses, and it was very hard to identify and find other people that look like me. And I craved that culture, and I really was excited. This is pre-internet for all you young kids out there, right? We had to order magazines if you wanted to like really get in touch with cultural stuff. And then I just knew that was like what I was missing is like the identity piece of me. Fast forward, I go to college and I'm seeing all these Indian people from around around the state and around the country. And really like they were proud of being Indian. They knew so much more about their culture. And I quickly jumped in and was like, I want to do everything I could possibly be about being brown. And so I just, I was on the Indian dance team. I was part of an Indian sorority. I just like was really excited about the culture. Then, I was looking for marriage, and I knew it was important for my family and for me to also have that heritage and that religious piece. So I was only dating other South Asians or Indian people. Fast forward, I had kids, this and that. But my network was really, really Indian, very South Asian. And being the networker that I am, the talker that I am, the conversations naturally kept coming up around my friends and family about, hey, do you know single people? You know lots of people. You do work here and you're involved in politics, whatever. How about single people? And the theme just kept coming up. And obviously, it's such a big part of everyone's life. South Asian culture, especially, marriages are like the thing about since you're born. I thought, let me try my hand at it. And that's how I got started.
I love that. Where do most of your clients live?
So we work with clients all over the US and Canada. I think one of the things that you'll find that's different with South Asian, though it is changing with this Gen Z population, is we look for a lot of the cultural similarities, a lot of that values-driven approach. And so distance isn't as important for us. And with so many people being immigrants, like, not many are second generation or third generation, they haven't really put down roots. So distance or location has never been an issue for Indian daters.
Oh, that's good. So when you are working with a client, are they typically looking for love-based connections or traditional arrangements?
Yeah, I think that like it's a little bit of both. We don't do the classic arranged marriage. I think that's where mom and dad come in, that community aspect. Everybody's pushing it since that, I think you turn 18. But from our perspective, I think we add in the cultural nuances. Like we understand why maybe being a vegetarian is important to somebody and why they would look for that in a partner. We understand even like the ethnic makeup, right? Languages are very different. Some traditions are very different. So I think I bring that understanding towards that modern approach of, do my values align? I mean, are we socially the same? And am I going to fall in love with this person?
Do you find that with the different cultures in South Asian cultural backgrounds, does that work
when you're trying to match, or does it matter that they have different types of backgrounds?
Yeah,
Some
like the
people,
nuances, how
Yeah.
specific do you need to get for a couple to click?
right. Yeah. Like if I'm from one part of India and my parents speak this language versus another part of India, I would say that like by the time they get to me, right, the clients get to me, they've kind of already worked those channels to their community members and family. And I think that one of the beauty of being South Asian American, that umbrella term, is that American is such a big part of it. Most of us, we grew up here. Maybe we have like family members, distant family members. We haven't been back to the motherland that often. That connection is not so tenuous as what it was for our parents. So for us, and I know this like for so many of my, as long as you're brown, as long as they eat Indian food, right? Like we can make it work. That's the
Okay.
culture we're looking for.
Is there family expectations that factor into these type of matchmaking, or is it traditionally like now? Maybe what's your age range that you're matching? Is it like
Yeah.
20 something to 50 something, and does the family expectations factor in?
I think with the word matchmaking, it is so traditional, right? That people, when they Google and they find us, they think, yep, she's going to be this auntie who has a Rolodex of people that are our community and she's going to, but then they meet me and I don't work with parents. That's one of our number one rules. If you go to our website, our tagline is we are not your parents' matchmaker. And that comes
I
with that
want to hear
because
more about that. Let's circle back to that.
yeah. But because of the nuances that we want to make sure that we're balancing that aspect of love and long-term compatibility. So age range wise, we work with clients only over the age of 25 because I want to make sure they have some dating under their belt, right?
Yeah.
Speaking is like, okay, long-term relationship, but you have to date. You have to have your heart broken. You need to see what that's like before you understand what you want out of a long-term relationship. I would
Exactly.
say the sweet spot for singles is that mid 30s, early 40s age range. But we also have a program that's called Second Time Shaadi that really helps with people who are dating a second time around, right? Maybe they have kids, maybe they got divorced later in life. Maybe they're never looking for love until they hit their 50s. And that's a segment that I think in traditional Indian dating gets ignored a lot, right? We don't talk about those people.
Because divorce is a taboo, or what exactly is the issue
I would
here?
say divorce is a taboo, and there's so much tradition and joy and celebration around marriages. It's such a big part of our culture. People focus on the young kids and getting them married so that it often feels like people in their 40s and 50s get overlooked. And I'm proud to say that we have this specialized program. And as I mentioned, most of my singles are late 30s, early 40s, when the traditional community might be like, oh, it's too late for them. They've hit their expiration date.
Yeah, I like that actually. When you are offering them these services, are you also offering them feedback or dating advice or coaching advice to really get them on that solid matching spot? Or do you just match and then they do their own thing?
I learned early on that matchmaking it's not a perfect science, right? It's really like you see two things on paper, it might work out, but the nuance that each individual brings is what's going to determine if that match is successful or not. So coaching and feedback is a huge part of what we do. We also absolutely offer coaching packages where we'll work one-on-one with you for a couple of months to help you through your swiping game, through our setups, just making sure that you're approaching dating in a way that makes sense. Because you can meet your perfect person, whether it's through me or whether it's online, but if your headspace isn't right, the timing isn't right, it's still not going to work out. And that's why I kind of tell people that matchmaking is not magic. At the end of the day, it really is what people
we know.
are bringing. Yeah.
We have heard it all on this show and through our community. When it comes to coaching, I mean, what would you say is one of the biggest challenges that people want to get support around?
Yeah, I think it's that the concept of dating in our community, it's like it was so taboo. It's like, no, we don't date, we get married. But as I mentioned earlier, you need to interact with other people. You need to see what being intimate with people feels like before you make that ultimate decision. And it's not a death sentence. Just because you pick somebody doesn't mean you're stuck with them forever, obviously. But let's just make sure that there's not so much anxiety around picking that right person, right? If anybody's seen the new movie Materialist that just came out, I wrote a really cool blog piece and podcast on it. She does such a good job boiling down the matchmaking industry to a math equation. And at the end of the day, if the math doesn't align on paper, which is what we do, the chances of success are maybe going to diminish. And that's as much as we can do, is get you guys to be that same number, 2 + 2 = 4, as much as possible. But what you bring to the table ultimately is going to decide.
With all
Yeah.
types of coaching and dating.
Yeah.
So you're only going to be as successful as what you bring to it.
Yeah, I was curious. One of the comments actually kind of touched on that. It says, "Is it taboo for all types in dating?" What Misty, I think, is kind of referring to something that I was actually going to ask you is, do you match people who are maybe outside of the culture? Like, do you match people who maybe they are South Asian or the Indian, but they are attracted to maybe more of a westernized person? Or a person of a different color or ethnicity? Do you match those type of situations, or is it just South Asian or Indian?
In order to be in a niche, we do have to stick with a certain demographic. Otherwise, it would just be opening it up for everybody. And I would be just one of those mainstream app matchmakers type of things. But that being said, there's so much diversity in South Asian culture. I'll give you some examples. The West Indians also identify as South Asian because, even though they've been in let's say Guyana or Barbados for hundreds of years, their ethnic roots and origins still go back to India. So I'll take West Indian clients. I've worked with Middle Eastern sometimes if they can self-select, but I really don't turn people away. I actually even had somebody who was a Roma client. She was born and raised in America, but her family is Roma ancestry, and they originated from India generations ago as well. It just depends, right? And my clients themselves are very open-minded, and that's where our coaching piece comes in. So if you work with us in a coaching capacity, yeah, we're going to help you swipe and match with any color, ethnicity, even gender orientation and sexual, like we are the only matchmakers, South Asian matchmakers, that work with the queer community.
Oh my God. Go on.
I was going to ask you about that. That was my next question, because you had touched on the divorce and things like that, but I was actually going to ask you, what about the LGBTQ plus community?
Yeah.
Do you have matches that you do within the community for that?
Right.
Yeah, it's a small segment, I will say, just because it's still such a, speaking of taboos, not a lot of South Asian, queer people are out publicly, things like that.
Right.
But
right.
we do so much around education. We partner with other matchmakers that are queer matchmakers. I don't want to turn anybody away. If you feel like you identify with our community, we'll figure out a way to help you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What about support for like interfaith or intercultural matches? What do you do for that?
Same, right? If you tell me during the intake interview, hey, I'm Hindu, but I don't care what I match with, when we're going to match you with anybody, right? And then I think support piece, this is a little bit where we partner more than offer on our own services. But once couples are in a relationship, that's when we kind of get hands off, because matchmaking is about helping you find your person. Once you do, there's so many more nuances to relationships, like dynamics. We partner with a lot of good coaches and a lot of other relationship experts. So we still have that ecosystem, but that's where we maybe take a step back and allow them to build that relationship.
How often does that come up, the religious aspect? Because I think that's perfectly valid. If you definitely want to date someone who is your same religion, I have no judgment against that. I'm just curious.
I would say it has to come up every time, because in the initial application, we're asking, what are you looking for? Height, citizenship status, immigration, whatever. And faith, right? That's always going to come up. And if you sell any Hinge or any dating app you go on, they're going to ask you your preferred faith. So unfortunately, that does come up pretty much.
But do people want to date within their faith most of the time, some of the time? I'm just curious.
Probably 80%. Yeah.
Okay. Which I totally get. I'm Mormon or ex-Mormon. And so, okay. No, because that's
and being in a niche community, that's kind of what I'm offering, right? Is that if you're on these mainstream dating apps, you might every 10 swipes find a brown person. Right. With me, every match is going to be a certain type of brown person.
Oh, yeah. I get that. It's funny. I get a lot of Indian men who really like me because of my blonde hair, blue eyes, and light skin. I have dated quite a few. They're wonderful men. Wonderful men. It wasn't a match for me, but I think that Indian men are just incredible. I think they're very kind. I think that some of them are very romantic, maybe not always, because some of them are come from a traditional kind of thing, and maybe that's not a value. How do you work with people who are like younger and want that kind of thing, but maybe they've not really had experience with that?
Mm.
And I think experience is the key, right? That's where I try to convince them that every interaction doesn't have to end in marriage. I get, especially when I see a lot of rejections coming from the people I have set them up with. I'm like, what are we actually looking for right now? Is the first date a 3-hour interview where you're talking about what college your kids are going to go to? Or is it
Right.
more like, I watched this on TV the other day and it was so funny. Have you heard of this comedian? Right? Like that's what I try to get them to understand. And it's the programming. We grew up since birth saying like, you got to marry well. Like this is something you have to do. I have clients who say they just want to date. Right. And we offer a database approach so that they can kind of come and go as they need. They don't have to find their person in a time period per se. And they'll stick with me just because they like the fact that, hey, when they're looking to meet somebody, I might introduce them. They have a good relationship for a couple of months and then they move on with their life. It's not always about ending in marriage.
Right.
But you have people, sorry to interrupt, I just want
you're
to
good.
come back to the whole, you said that you have clients around the country and that location is not as important. So would you say most of your clients are long distance relationships? How does this work exactly with people being matched all over the country?
Yeah, most of our matches, we try to aim for driving distance because if you're not going to meet in the first couple of weeks, chances are it's never going to work out. But some of our more traditional clients, they're the ones who are like, if it lines up on paper, I'm flying out next weekend. And that's what they're specifically looking for. Because again, as I mentioned, why I take them 25 and older is maybe they've already been dating for 5-7 years. Maybe they feel like they've quote unquote exhausted the local dating pool. And that's why they're opening up for long distance. But with the way the population centers are, right, New York, New Jersey area, in Texas, because I'm based here, and then in the San Francisco, those are like our 3 huge, bigger locations. They're all the driving distance and companies a lot. So why I say they're open to long distance, it's somebody you could see foreseeably on a weekend trip.
That's good because, I can't imagine. Do you find with the type of people that you are having to match, okay, do you find that they tend to get to marriage faster? Or do you think that you have a lot more success with people just like moving in, dating long term, or is it like marriage pretty quick?
I think the people who are more serious, because as I mentioned, they've been trying on their own. This is a goal that they want in their life to be in a relationship. Maybe it's just timing. Maybe it's something that they don't realize is happening, like what they're bringing to the table. So I think that we do find success in people who are quote unquote serious. And that's what they want, not just casual dating. Nothing wrong with casual dating. You need to do that to get to where you are. But if you're going to take the time to work with the matchmaker and kind of do the work that it takes, I think that you're going to be more serious.
A matchmaker who specializes in casual dating. That would be interesting. Chrissy, we have not come across any matchmakers who specialize in casual dating. We have not.
Well, no, but if you think about it, it's not like people have goals to be casual dating. I think that, when you're being matched, you have this idea of what possibly you want or don't want. But then when you get into a situation, it turns into maybe moving in together and having a long-term relationship that's like 3 or 4 years before they get married. So you never know. Or they could just be dating for several years and not go anywhere. So it's hard to like determine what that's going to be like, I would think.
I think marriage is the end goal. Yeah. So like you can be in a long-term relationship and not, I think that for South Asians, particularly my clients, they're not looking just to be in a live-in or like a long-term. They want marriage.
Yep. Cool. Fair enough. And also I think that that's super important to be super specific about what you are here for, what your demographic wants, and that you are going to make it happen. Help to make it happen.
Well, with the first generational clients, do you get a lot of those like just here for the first time from India?
Yeah. And I would say that's probably
Ooh.
one of the biggest segmentation lines for my clients. It's, were you born and raised here or were you born and raised elsewhere? And as you mentioned, Christine, earlier, right? Like it just wasn't a fit for you and some of those Indian guys you dated, because culturally, if you grew up watching Friends and Boy Meets World and like eating cereal and sugary snacks and right, like, but in and then in India, maybe they were like a very different culture. They learned English as a second language. They weren't exposed to the same. When they come here, you know, while on paper, it's like, oh, this seems fine. You're very educated. You're the same age, whatever, socioeconomically. I think that the comfortability of like, you get where I come from, it doesn't line up for both sides. You know, it used to be when I was growing up, it was like, oh, I don't want to date immigrants. It was like really big thing. And it was one of my criteria. Like this guy needs to have been raised in America. But now as I take on more recently immigrated clients, they say to me, I don't want somebody ABCD. We call it American born, confused Desi. They're like, I don't want somebody an American born because they don't know what I went through and they don't get my family background.
Right. I can also see that, especially with men who maybe come from India. And then there's a girl who's been born and raised here culturally, like their mindsets are in two completely different places, especially if he is, you know, involved in his traditions and she maybe isn't as traditional or wasn't raised, she was Americanized. I can see issues there.
But this brings up a good question. I mean, where is the gender mix here? Do you have lots of women reaching out? I mean, is it men hoping to connect with women, women who are confused? And yeah, tell us more about like the breakdown of your clients.
Yeah, my database is 65% women, 35% men.
Oh.
Yeah, which is very interesting. Like for most South Asians, I work with a lot of other Indian matchmakers as well, and we all have more women than men.
I never would have thought that.
Right. On the larger dating scene, on the apps and things, it's more men than women. Now, here's where I say that I align with that broader trend. My Gen Z clients, so under 30, the men, I have more men that are signing up from that age range. And I think it's because we talk about that loneliness epidemic, that socializing piece. And I think that with the internet and all that, men they're not as good at socializing. And they think that being in a relationship is what's missing from their life. And then I'll also add into that the immigrant piece as well. These men are leaving India. They've been surrounded by women. Everything's been done for them their whole lives. They come here and they feel lost. So they think, I need a woman in my life to get my social circle back, to help me make dinner on, you know, like, so the under 30, I'm seeing more men.
Ooh, that's interesting. How are you finding your clientele? Is it like word of mouth? Are you really prevalent in the community that it really works?
Media is huge. You know, you ladies know, being in podcasts and, you know, just always having to put yourself out there. My website, I'm very proud of it. We've been in business for 7-ish years. If you Google anything Indian matchmaking, we're always at the top. Social media as well, right? We do a lot of kind of playing, it's like affordable marketing, but word of mouth is the biggest. I told you earlier, I don't work with parents. The number one inquiry forms are filled out from their parents.
Christine, do you mind if we talk about that for a second?
Moms, yeah.
I really want to know about this parent aspect because now it's come up twice. So, generally speaking, what is the parental role in Indian people dating? And then how, I don't know. I just want to dive more into this. What do you typically see, and why is not only how do you set yourself apart, or why are you set apart, but what would be, I don't know, the typical parental role in these things? Because I mean, for Christine and I, this is foreign to us. So yeah.
And I think traditionally, I'll tell you just from what I know from my parents and other people, my peer group, parents were involved because, you know, as soon as the kid is old enough, it's like, it's I don't want to say a business transaction, but marriages have to happen. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Sometimes we hear tragedies from those situations because they force these marriages or like, they're hiding things. But traditionally, parents have always been involved. They have an overt responsibility in our culture to get their children married. So you juxtapose that to now the American or the Western mindset. You don't have a community to dip into to be like, hey, so-and-so's brother's niece is single because your neighbors are white or black or Mexican. And so you might be isolated. We talked a little bit about ethnic communities. If I speak this certain language and now I'm in the middle of, Bufu, Michigan, and maybe I do have Indian friends, but they're not that same background or that same community. When it comes to trying to get your children settled, their instinct is to go back to that. Well, we have to marry within the community. And so I think parents are overtly concerned about what's going to happen if their child is 30 and not married. And that's the reason why they're seeking out the ways to find matches for their kids.
But is the 30-year-old engaged with this type of mindset and ways of going about doing things? Because if you're raised in America, I would this would be a completely different way than your peers going about marriage and dating.
But they're still being raised by traditional Indian families, period.
Yeah. And this is where the hybrid approach comes in, right? Like we don't do arranged marriages per se anymore. I call them introduced. So if your Aunt Sally showed you a boy that goes to her church and you're like, all right, I'm 28, it's a Thursday night, I got nothing to do, let me go to dinner with him. That's kind of the approach it is now with parents. Maybe a little bit more intense in our culture, but it's like, right, hey, I found this guy online. They're the ones who are on the matrimony sites. They're the ones who are looking for profiles. But then they can ultimately go to their son and daughter and be like, check out this person. Would you like to go out with them? Or would you like to meet them? Maybe not go out, but would you like to meet them? And so I think that the singles are at least open and receptive to be like, okay, who did mom find? Knowing that there's no pressure. Like, I don't have to date this girl and I don't have to get married. So there's this like the new modern version of parental matchmaking.
Yeah. I know the moms are really involved a lot. Even one of the ones I was dating probably about 6 or 7 years ago, he was divorced and he had custody of the kids and his mom lived with him to help him take care of the children. And I was just like, I'm never going to be able to meet your family, am I? And he's like, not really. And I was like, then why are we wasting our time? I get you're attracted to me, and he was very handsome, but it wasn't going to work. So I get that the moms are very, very involved, even if they're not living with them. And a lot of them do. They still live with their families.
Yeah. There's a big tradition of saying like generationally together, especially with the children and grandchildren come in. There's that guilt trip, right? Like you can't put them in daycare. You need family around. And so that's another reason why I think that even people who grew up here are still seeking that traditional aspect, because those are the nuances that only other South Asian people would get.
Sure.
I'll give you another example. At least this guy was divorced. The mom was living with him. I know so many, even my own clients who are like in their late 30s, even early 40s, and still live at home. And that's not considered weird. Maybe in your 40s, it's a little weird, but it's not something that anybody would blink twice at and be like, oh, why is he still living at home? Because we're just culturally raised that way.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's why I got it, when I was talking to him, I was like, but all your family like lives within, and this is, you're not going to be able to. He's like, no.
The dating is different too, because he's not going to like bring you home for a sleepover. Or like a hookup or something, right?
Exactly.
Which makes you question, or this is where the coaching comes in, then if you're not going to be hooking up with this person, right? But then you're also not going to bring him home to mom. What are we trying to do here?
He was trying to just hook up with me.
At your house always?
Yeah. He just wanted to like just go out and then just, hook up with me. And I was like, dude, no. This is I'm not your side piece. No.
Oh, of course not.
Side piece to his, not a wife. Side piece to his mom and daughters.
Exactly. Do you have any like standout examples of a successful match?
Yeah.
My favorite match is our first wedding that we ever got under our belts.
Cool.
Yeah.
Aw.
So the gentleman had been working with me for a little over a year. As I mentioned, we do what's called a database. So once you interview and you get registered, then we just send you matches, kind of like a dating app. If you're interested, then we'll introduce you, you pay for that,
Yeah.
and you move forward. So he'd been with us for about a year, maybe 3 or 4 dates we'd sent him on. The girl, this was literally her first person we had introduced her to. They went out on a first date. Both of them texted me separately right away to say, this was the best first date. I really think something's going to come of this. Like, thank you so much. And fast forward a year later, he proposed. 2 years later, they got married. I went to the wedding. Like, it was my favorite. Now I'm like, we need a baby. Like, it's like, Shaadi's baby.
Exactly. We need a baby on the website.
Yeah.
What
yeah.
did they like? What made them match so successfully? Was there a few different
think
things?
A key is strike while the iron is hot. One of the things I hate about modern dating, especially on the apps, is that you chat and chat and chat. You have like a pseudo relationship just through chat. I laugh. Like, I had this one client, she's like, we got into a fight. I'm like, you've never met him in person. How are you getting into a fight with this guy on texting?
Oh,
So I think what really helped for the two of them is they met within the week of meeting. And I think that they just vibed, right? Like they went to dinner, they went for drinks, like that all just the vibes were great. That neither of them were like getting into the weeds about where our kid's going to go to college and this and that. So that they enjoyed themselves. And that really made it a successful first date. And that made them want to see each other again. I can't tell you ladies how many times they get the one and dones. They go to dinner one time and they're like, I don't feel it anymore. Like,
well, Christine and I talk a lot about chemistry versus compatibility, and we won't go into it, but that's a perfect example. Because you are matching people who have similar values. And so intrinsically, there's a compatibility factor or potential. And so for so many to say, no, I didn't feel it, that's actually kind of a shame.
It
goes back to that paradox of choice or that magic wand, right? Like she hits 3 out of 4, but I'm going to wait till I get somebody who hits 5 out of 4. What?
Yeah. And then they're like 45 and still not fucking married.
Yep. I call them the forever singles. They think that they're like have a chip on their shoulder. Like they think they're so big and bad. There's a problem with everybody that they meet. Well, I don't know, buddy.
Yeah, I get that. That's a problem in dating in general. People expect something big and bold and like love at first sight to strike them, and then when they don't, they kind of like just have issues with everything, and then they find and nitpick everything, and it's a pandemic that people are not being able to find a person to just have some kind of relationship with, because they're so worried about, is this person 100%? Like you don't fucking know until you start getting to know them and date them. And
let me add in another layer. There's this thing called Bollywood. So that's like our cinema industry. And Bollywood has just nothing but perpetuated stereotypes around love and romance.
I was actually going to ask about this.
Yeah, like what women should look like, how men should behave, right? Like there's a big masochistic problem, like machismo problem in India, because of they think that like, just keep bothering her, just keep chasing after her, she'll eventually say yes, right? Those are another trope. Now in modern Bollywood, the bodies and the you can just see the like unrealistic expectations, and it's just adding another layer of what people think they deserve when it comes to real life dating.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I was actually going to ask, Christine and I are blonde white bitches, and I was just curious maybe what you think that like the two of us might find most surprising about either your business or your matches or what people are experiencing, your clients.
Let's see, from like an American blonde bitch's perspective. I don't know. I think it's kind of like you said, Christine, like it's a dating culture overall. It seeps into every niche and every nuance, not just necessarily Indian. Probably the most surprising is the fact that, people are more serious and like they are literally looking for marriage, like, which we talked about. And then that family aspect, bringing in so much culture. I don't think that any other ethnicity has so many layers around culture and religion and immigration and faith and just like levels of faith, that's a big thing. Politics, right? There's just so much involved. We live in a global world. So if there's an election happening in India, I'm seeing people in America fighting about it. I'm like, we don't live there. It doesn't matter. But still.
Yeah. I do think that a lot of Middle Eastern, European cultures are very similar to that. And then they come here to the States and then they want to stay within their own communities for marriage and stuff. And I'm sure it gets really tricky because, like you said, there's just not a massive community of all these different cultures that religiously, culturally, family wise, really, mesh and work. I'm sure it's a difficult situation.
Socioeconomic too, right? Like I come from a working class background. There's a whole wave of people that came over as doctors and nurses when there was the shortage in the 80s. So socioeconomic backgrounds is another thing where you have to match on. That's probably a surprising fact that doesn't come up that often. Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful thing that there's so many people out there to keep your business in business who say, these are my values, this is my background, I want to preserve this, so much so that I'm going to seek out somebody who can help me facilitate that. I think it's a lovely thing.
Here's another surprising thing. Maybe like your relationship to your culture. This is something that I ask everybody as well, because some people are like me, little Miss India, who just love everything about being Indian. And then some people are very much more Americanized, like they're, don't identify with so much of the Indian culture. So on that scale too, you have to fit. Like, are you going to go out to watch a Bollywood movie and eat Indian food every weekend? Or is it like, no, we're going to go to the club and maybe go to temple once a year type of thing.
Watch some NBA, go Nuggets.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's a lot of factors, and I love that. Are you one of the most prevalent matchmaking companies for Indian, or is there others that you?
There are others, but we're the largest database because we make it so approachable. So I work with a lot of other matchmakers, and we'll match our clients with theirs. It's kind of like I have that large dating pool, but I'm probably the most recognizable. There's a lot of international brands as well that have offices here. But again, then you're getting into that very traditional element of it.
I love that. So when did you get married, Radha?
I got married in 2009, way back in the day.
Was that before you started matchmaking or after?
Yeah, absolutely. So I met my husband, ironically, at a speed dating event that was held by one of our ethnic convention, like an annual convention. And I just happened to go that year. He happened to be there that year. And that's when we met. Ironically now, 23 years later, I actually host those speed dating events and try to get people to. So when people ask me, does it work? I'm like, yes, it does. I'm a living example.
Yes, speed dating. Try it.
I love that.
Especially now when people are like, you see all these studies out there and then people don't want to use the apps anymore. They're kind of, we hit that 13, 14 year, since Tinder came on the stage, people are tired of it. And so speed dating, my events are probably my second largest revenue generator right now because it's low barrier to entry. You buy a ticket, you show up, it's local, right? Because it's usually held at a neighborhood restaurant or bar, and it's 2 hours. You meet 10 or 12 people. If it works out, great. Just maybe get a date or two. If not, whatever, you had a drink, met some people. That's worth it.
I love that. I actually think that's really cool. I love that there are certain types of speed dating that really work. I think your average person going to a speed dating doesn't always work out. I mean, I've been to a couple and they've been like flops, but I can understand how somebody who has a real ethnic pool that it's a very
the more niche they are. Like what Victoria and I are doing.
Yeah.
Pay attention, people. Go
I
to
can
these.
see that. I can see
if
that.
that's what you're looking for. Yeah, exactly.
Well, Radha, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with us today. Time went really fast.
Yeah, seriously.
It was fun.
So fun. I feel like we could talk about this for hours.
I know. Anytime you want to come back, you let me know. If you've got something you want a topic to talk about, you can come on and I'm happy to have you anytime. So for we're doing a podcast next week, an episode next week about friends helping each other be accountable for like advice and
Okay.
supporting each other. It's really cool. Steve's back on with one of his accountability friends, which is going to be fun. So we love having amazing guests. So you were awesome, Radha. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Thank you, Christine.
And
Thank you,
I'm
Janice.
really fascinated by all the different ethnic type of matchmaking. And, it's, people still have traditions they want to keep. And I love that you came on and talked to us about this. This is fascinating.
Thank you. I love what you ladies are doing. I love your show. I love that you guys are just calling it out, how dating is right now, because it's hard. It's hard out there. People are lonely. And so if you know that you're not the only one, it helps.
Yeah, it's a lot. And it's nice to have support. And I commend you on that. I'm sure a lot of people are very grateful for your service. So, but thank you, Radha, again. Janice, thanks for coming on and supporting me today as my co-host. And to all of everybody who came and listened again, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here. And we're going to be back again, same time, same place next week. And until then, let's just keep this shit real.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share with your friends, like and follow us on Instagram at 50 Shades of _bullshit and Facebook at 50 Shades of Bullshit. Thanks so much for listening, and we really hope to see you again next week.